Formal learning is typically divided into a number of educational stages covering early childhood education, primary education, secondary education and tertiary education. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization recognizes 7 levels of education in its International Standard Classification of Education System through Level 6. UNESCO's International Bureau of Education maintains a database of country-specific education systems and their stages. Organization. Education during childhood is typically provided through 2 or 3 stages of schooling, followed by college or vocational training. Early childhood education at preschool, also nursery school and kindergarten. Primary education at primary school, also elementary school, and sometimes partly at middle school. Secondary education at secondary school, or high school, and sometimes also partly at middle school. Higher education at university, college or through vocational training. The following table introduces the main concepts, although terms and ages may vary by some amount in different places. Alternative organizations. Sudbury schools. At Sudbury schools there are no formal grade levels or educational stages. Instead, students aged 4 through 18 are completely age-mixed and there is a system of certifications for using equipment that requires specialized knowledge and/or understanding of safety concerns. Certifications are not typically restricted by age, only by demonstrated ability. By country. Australia. In Australia, children undergo 12 years of formal education, usually starting at age 4, 5 or 6, and finishing at age 16, 17 or 18. The years are numbered from 1 to 12. INDACT, NSW, Tas, Queensland and Vic. Primary school is years 1 to 6, and secondary school, years 7 to 12. In WA and SAR, primary school is years 1 to 7 and secondary school, years 8 to 12. Brazil. In Brazil there are 3 levels of basic education: Educação Infantil, Ensino Fundamental, and Ensino Médio, which generally are completed by age 18. Basic education is designed to provide the necessary minimum knowledge for the exercise of citizenship. It also serves to develop consciousness for choosing future professions. In Brazil, after the name of the grade one may use the names série or ano. The educational stages in Brazil are divided as follows: Educação Infantil, Ensino Fundamental, Ensino Médio. Canada. In Canada, schooling officially begins at kindergarten, followed by grades, with some variations for certain levels in certain provinces, territories. When referred to as a grade, school years are usually referred to by their cardinal number. At the post-secondary level in Canada, a student is usually referred to by the year of study they are in. If they are pursuing something higher than an undergraduate degree, the designation usually refers to what year of study they are in since entering graduate studies. Any student who has completed their first year of undergraduate studies is considered to be an upper-year student. Each province and territory has its own autonomous education system. As such, the name of each level of education and what year each level begins, it will vary across the country. Grade structure or by province, territory. The following table shows how grades are organized in various provinces. Often, there will be exceptions within each province, both with terminology for groups, and which grades apply to each group. China. In the People's Republic of China, the years are organized in 3 stages and renumbered within each stage. 6 years in elementary school, years 1 to 6, then 3 years in lower secondary, years 7 to 9, then 3 years in higher secondary, years 1 to 3. The first 9 years are compulsory, and the years in higher secondary school are voluntary. Completing higher secondary education or attaining an equivalent level is required before one may receive higher education at universities. Hong Kong. The Hong Kong system was based on the United Kingdom system, with an optional year at kindergarten, 6 years of primary school and 6 years of secondary school, followed by 4 years at university. Primary 1 to 6 corresponds to years 1 to 6 in the UK, and Forms 1 to 6 correspond to years 7 to 12. Usually students begin Primary 1 at age 5 or 6 and complete Form 6 at age 17 or 18. In Hong Kong, international schools follow the system of the country they are based upon. For example, the English Schools Foundation uses the UK year system, and French international schools use the French college, école, lycée system. Also, the English term form followed by the English number is common usage even in otherwise Cantonese conversations. France education is compulsory from age 6 to age 14 or 16. At the end of the lycée cursus is the French baccalaureate exam. It is possible in France to fail a year and need to resit. Iran. The Iran system has experienced several changes in the last 7 to 8 decades. Prior to 1940 to 1950, the education system had consisted of 3 levels, called in order: an optional year in kindergarten, 6 years of primary school, finally followed by 6 years of secondary school ended up with a diploma. After some improvements during Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, the system was changed to 4 consecutive periods. 2 optional years in kindergarten and pre-primary school, primary school consisting of 5 years, 3 years in middle school, and finally 4 years in high school. The system was ended up by honoring a diploma in certain majors, e.g., math and physics. Around 1996–1997, 1 year was reduced from the entire education system and one was honored with a diploma after 3 years in high school. However, if one would have liked to continue his education towards university degrees, one would have been required to take the last year, so-called pre-university year. This year had been a requirement to participate in the Iranian university entrance exam for high school students. Again, around 2012, the system turned back to its previous system, consisting of 2 6-year periods. Ireland. In the Republic of Ireland, there are 2 levels of compulsory education, primary school and secondary school. The names of each class are as follows: junior infants, senior infants, first class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class, sixth class. After 6th class, students move to secondary school, entering junior cycle, first year, second year, third year, junior certificate, fourth year or transition year, senior cycle, fifth year, sixth year or final year, leaving certificate. In some schools, transition year is compulsory, in others it is optional, and in others is not available. Italy. In Italy, education is compulsory from the age of 6 to the age of 16. Note: on parents' demand, children can start the scuola elementare 1 year earlier. Educazione infantile, asilo nido, 3 months 3 years. Scuola d'infanzia, 3 years 5 years. Scuola primaria, I elementare, 6 to 7. 2 elementare, 7 to 8. 3 elementare, 8 to 9. IV elementare, 9 to 10. V elementare, 10–11. Scuola secondaria di primo grado, I media 11–12. 2 media 12–13. 3 media 13–14. Scuola secondaria I secondo grado, biennio I superior 1–4–1–5, E superior 15–16. Triennio 3 superior 1–6–1–7, IV superior 17–18, V superior 18–19. Japan. In Japan, the years are organized in 3 stages and renumbered within each stage. 6 years in elementary school years 1 to 6, then 3 years in lower secondary years 1 to 3, then 3 years in higher secondary years 1 to 3. The first 9 years are compulsory, and the years in higher secondary school are voluntary. Completing higher secondary education or attaining an equivalent level is required before one may receive higher education at universities. Malaysia. Compulsory education in Malaysia spans a period of 11 years and comprises both primary and secondary education. Kindergarten is optional. Malaysian primary school consists of 6 years of education, referred to as Year 1 to Year 6. Year 1 to 3 are classified as Level 1, while Year 4 to 6 make up Level 2. Primary schooling usually begins at the age of 7 and ends at 12. Students take their first national examination, the UPSR, towards the end of the Year 6 school year. Secondary schooling usually begins at age 13. Secondary schools offer education for a total of 5 years, starting with Form 1 and finishing at Form 5. Forms 1 to 3 are grouped together into the lower form, and Forms 4 and 5 are considered the upper form. Students in Form 3 will have to sit for their second national exam, the PMR. They are then streamed into sciences or humanities classes for the upper form according to their performance in this exam. At age 17, students in Form 5 sit for the final level of national examinations, the SPM. Achieving a passing grade in the Bahasa Melayu portion of the exams is compulsory. Failure results in an automatic failing grade for all subjects taken in the examination, and the student is held back to repeat Form 5. Completion of the examination signifies that the student has completed formal education in Malaysia. An SPM certificate remains the base requirement to secure most jobs in Malaysia. After the SPM, students have a choice of either continuing with Form 6 or entering matriculation. If they opt for Form 6, they will be required to take the STPM examination. Although generally taken by those desiring to attend public universities in Malaysia, an STPM certification is internationally recognized and may also be used, though rarely required, to enter private local universities for undergraduate courses. New Zealand. In New Zealand, children are required by law to attend 10 years of educational instruction, from the age of 6 to 16. The law also provides in the same legislation that all people are allowed to attend free education to the age of 18. This legislation is the Education Act 1989. Children enroll at primary school when they turn 5 years old. From years 1 to 6, students attend primary school. In years 7 and 8, students attend intermediate, or a joint school. The final years of free education are spent in secondary school. New Zealand also has 2 older educational stage numbering systems. Standards 5 and 6 were largely unused with the introduction of intermediate schools in the 1950s. While primer numbering was in use well into the 1970s, and some academically focused secondary schools still use form numbering. Primary school, intermediate school, secondary school. Norway. In Norway, children start school at the age of 6. Before that, kindergarten is voluntary. This school is called barneskole. 6 to 7, first grade. 7 to 8, second grade. 8 to 9, third grade. 9 to 10, fourth grade. 10-11, fifth grade. 11-12, sixth grade. 12-13, seventh grade. The second school is ungdomsskole. At this level, the students are rated with grades in each subject, in addition to behavior and orderliness. 13-14, 8th grade. 14-15, 9th grade. 15-16, 10th grade. The last school before higher education is called Vidregeronderskole and is voluntary, though most choose to attend. At this level, students decide among separate career-related schools. The most popular such school is designed to prepare one for further education, while others prepare students for vocations such as mechanics, electricians, cooks and so on. Educational stages in these schools begin again at 1, and are named VG1, VG2, VG3 and VG4. Some of the more practical schools last only 2 years, and some students may choose to attend an extra year to study higher education. The typical duration is 3 years. though some schools offer a 4-year program to enable students to engage in more athletics or gather real work experience. 1617, VG1. 1718, VG2. 1819, VG3. 1920, VG4. Philippines. Previously in the Philippines, there are only 10 years of compulsory education. School starts on the first or second week of June, while school ends in the last week of March or first week of April. There are 3 stages of education in the Philippines: elementary, junior high school, and senior high school. The original 10 years of compulsory education was raised to 12 years of education. This policy was implemented in June 2012. Here is the table. Russia. In Russia, compulsory education lasts 8 or 9 years and begins the year the child turns 7 or, sometimes, 6. The first stage of elementary school can last either 3 years or 4 years. After the first stage, all pupils enter the 5th grade, thus pupils that started at the age of 7 do not attend the 4th grade. While it is not compulsory to remain in school after graduating from middle school, a student can't progress to university without graduating from high school or vocational technical school. Singapore. In Singapore, compulsory education lasts 10 years and begins the year the child turns 7. However, most children receive a preschool education spanning 2 to 3 years before entering primary school, after which they will move on to a secondary school. While it is not compulsory to remain in school after graduating from secondary school, most go on to receive their tertiary education at a junior college, a polytechnic, or an institute of technical education before moving on to university. United Kingdom. England and Wales. In England and Wales, education is divided into 2 stages: primary education and secondary education. Required assessment within the national curriculum takes place in years 2 and 6 and year 11. School education is generally followed by 2 years of further education, often in a 6th form or 6th form college, and then 3 or 4 years at university by those who decide to stay in education. Children begin school either in the school year or school term in which they reach their 5th birthday. Primary schools educate children from reception through to year 6, and may be subdivided into infant and junior schools. Alternatively, children may attend private prep schools. Secondary education is compulsory to the age of 16. Schools have various possible names, such as grammar, comprehensive and secondary schools, which may or may not indicate selective admission or tuition fees. 6th form education is not compulsory at present, and not all secondary schools have a 6th form. There are also 6th form colleges just for year 12 and 13 students. Some secondary schools still use the form system, with year 7 being first form, year 8 being second form, etc., up until years 12 and 13, which together make up the 6th form. Some independent schools use other naming systems. In some areas in England, a 3-tier system of education is used, in which students pass through 3 stages: first school, lower school, middle school, and finally higher or upper school. Northern Ireland. The system in place in Northern Ireland resembles that in place in England, Wales, but there are notable differences. Education is compulsory during only 12 years, with pupils starting primary school in the September following their 4th birthday. Years are numbered from this point, meaning that year 2 in the Northern Irish system is the closest in age range to England's year 1. As with England and Wales, education is divided into primary and secondary sectors, with a division at age 11. The label key stage is also used, although with slightly different meanings to those seen in England. As of 2007 update, the province has a wholly selective system at the post-primary level, with all year 7 pupils taking the 11+ tests. This system will end with the new intake in 2009, with new arrangements as yet to be confirmed. Scotland. In Scotland, education is divided into 2 stages: Primary education and secondary education. Primary education is delivered almost exclusively through primary schools, which offer education for pupils aged between 4 and 12. Children are entitled to preschool education from their 3rd birthday, and must enter compulsory education from the August after their 5th birthday. There is some leeway in the starting date or pupils. Education lasts 7 years in the primary school, before pupils move to a secondary school for between 4 and 6 years, the last 2 being optional. There is some variation in the phasing of education in more remote areas of Scotland, where provision may be made in a through school, or in other combinations of institutes. United States. In the United States, the grades traditionally begin at 1 and run to 12. They are referred to by ordinal number. An additional preceding level called kindergarten is now standard in most areas, and a further preceding level called preschool education or nursery school is not uncommon. In some parts of the state of Wisconsin, kindergarten is split further into junior and senior kindergarten. At the secondary school level, grades 9 to 12 are also known as freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. At the post-secondary level, these terms are used almost exclusively to refer to what would otherwise be grades 13 to 16. This table outlines the ages, in years, of each grade level in the U.S. However, students are sometimes older because of grade retention or younger because of grade skipping.